guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Dr. Nyachira. I am a doctor by training, passion and profession. And I promised you last week, I think, that we'll have a gynecologist come to my house and then we can continue with our conversation on menstrual issues. But also now this time from a more technical bit, and to try and see whether some of our questions can be answered. And today we have Dr.Mutindi Kakuti. She's an amazing doctor, a lady that I love and I respect so much, even within the profession and even as a personal friend. And I'm so happy that she could join us today. So, karibu to this week's episode. Welcome, Doc.
Thank you, Dr. Nyachira.
Good to see you. Thank you for coming to us today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and honored.
Thank you. Because today we wanted to carry on a conversation that I had started about menstrual drama. And I'm sure, as a gynecologist, these are conversations that you have a lot with clients.
All the time.
And from some of the posts that I had written, a lot of them said, I went to a gynecologist and they dismissed me. They didn't listen to me. So I wanted you to tell me I know you followed and you've seen a bit of that, but let's just start from where do you think conversation around menses should begin for girls and for ladies? Mm-hmm. And at what point should somebody be concerned enough to come to a specialist?
Okay, so I think every mom who has a child who is a female, you have a female child, you have to think about having that conversation, and not when her periods start, before, because she can get her periods when she can start her periods when she's not at home. She can be in school. She can have gone for a camping trip or out with friends, and then her periods come. So if she doesn't know what to do, then she's going to ask her friends what to do. And moms should create a space whereby a daughter feels comfortable saying, Mom, I've got my period, can I come? I shared one time that I think when I got my period, I was so scared of telling my mom, because when those days we were kind of like somewhere. So you're like, now if I get my period, how do I go and tell my mom?
Oy.
So that conversation has to start way before she starts her periods, way before secondary sexual characteristics start coming up. Mm-hmm. Because within schools...
By secondary sexual characteristics, what do you mean? So break it down.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So the beginning of puberty.
Okay.
So when you start getting... So for girls, getting hair under the armpits, same thing happening with boys. So that we call that thalake. Thalake is the beginning of development of breast, and this is called adrenocane, whereby you have hair under your armpits and your private parts. That may actually start before you start your period. So even before that starts, because in school, like I remember when I was in school, some of my friends started developing earlier than I did. And I'm like, what's going on? Someone has boobs, you don't have boobs. Yeah. And so that conversation starts before, because some girls will start before you, and mothers need to know that you don't wait for the girls at her period and say, let's go to a gynecologist.
Yeah.
Mothers have to learn how to start this conversation without taking the daughter to a gynecologist. Because I'm getting moms who tell me, Kakuti, I want you to come and talk to my daughter.
They can't have the conversation yet.
Yes, I'm like, this is your daughter. I'm a doctor. So there needs to be a safe space away from the medics.
Especially because this continues for a long time,
Forever.
It starts and then it continues.
Yes.
In one of the posts, in one of the videos, a gentleman asked, and times are changing and we have a lot of fathers who are more involved in their daughters' lives. So how does the man start this conversation with the girls? In a situation where he's a single father or the mother is absent for whatever reason, and he's here with his girl who's about to start her menses. So how does he begin this?
Fantastic question. And it's not just for single dads. Even if you are a dad who is married or have you have a partner and you have a child, your daughter physical development, the journey she's going to take as an adolescent, as puberty, into adulthood, that is your responsibility, both as parents. So it's not to be left to no, that's not acceptable. Because if mom is not there and that your daughter comes and your daughter should feel free to come and ask you, Dad, I need money for this, And like our times I would con our dads and say, pads cost 500 shillings,
It was the easiest con.
Because they don't want to hear anything about it. So any man, even if he's a single dad, I'm sure there's a woman who is maybe mentoring or helping you raise your daughter from the female perspective. So there's, I mean, every single man, if you're single, you either, especially let me talk about maybe widows or widow or someone whose wife has passed away, and you do not know where to turn to. There are always women around you who are helping you raise your daughter who's a female child. So they can help you know how to navigate the conversation. But it is imperative that as a father, you don't turn away from that responsibility. You had a wife and she had periods. So what's so difficult about talking to your daughter?
You know, we are still in the African,
but we are still
struggling, and some cultures struggle more. You know, some cultures struggle more than others in terms of just how involved the man or the father can be. And you know, these are important conversations, because what happens is after this becomes the problems around menses or fertility issues later on, and you'll tell us at what point should somebody be concerned and what to look out for. But again, if there's a young person watching who didn't have a very good start with their periods, what do you say if they feel lost in this whole feminine issues? What's your take as a gynecologist, as a daktari ya wanawake? What do you say?
One, for me, I'll give my experience, was I think when we were growing up, I think my mom, we never sat and had the conversation. It was, this is what is happening to your body, and you're gonna get periods, and here are pads, and
use the pads.
This is how you use them. There was no conversation I felt we had about having menstrual periods, and it's still happening right now. And I think upbringing, as you've said, but we have to be, our conversation earlier was being malleable to what's happening, opening that up, the conversation. So if you didn't have that conversation, one is, can an adolescent, anyone who's not an adult, be able to go to a gynecologist and ask for help? They can, but of course now there's a cost implication to that.
Of course,
You know, I personally will not charge a young person coming to ask me questions about their reproductive health. I will not charge, because there are those who tell me, I've not had that conversation, can I come and talk to you?
Can we come and then I find like the right
Yes,
fit?
exactly.
And while we are even on that, doc, maybe we can just start talking about, okay, so for most people it's uneventful. So personally, my story, how I learned about menstrual periods at primary school, we had this conversations, and the girls would be put in a different room and the boys in a different room, and by the time my periods were coming, apart from the pain that I don't think anybody had prepared me for what cramps is, a lot of this conversation had been done around the school. Now, for most girls, sometimes it just happens, whether it's the busyness of life for whatever, maybe school or at home. At what point does somebody decide, okay, this is my daughter and this is the problem she's having, this is a good time to go to see a specialist for this issue? At what point do you make that recommendation to parents? Okay, so there's what we consider normal periods. Which is what?
Normal
so
periods.
We can
so
talk about
one,
that.
I always tell people, track your cycle. So one, your menstrual period is a cycle that goes round and round. So a normal cycle is between 21 days and 35 days.
Okay.
So the day your period starts, that's day one, and then you count up to the day of the next period. The number of days you bleed, we don't test up with those days. So that's your cycle. So if it's less than 21 days, more than 35 days, then there's a problem.
So it's out of the usual
out
cycle.
of the normal.
Correct. Yes.
The other thing would be the flow. So what's normal flow? Between 2 to 7, the number of days first is 2 to 7 is normal.
Okay.
So some girls tell me, you know, I get periods for 2 days, but because her sister gets 5 days, she thinks something is wrong with her. I'm like, no, they're normal. And the flow. So if you're bleeding more than 7 days, and 7 days, and your period is less than 1 day, then we normally consider that is abnormal. The other thing is the flow. I'll normally ask you on your heaviest day. So all of us, our periods are kind of the same. There's the premenstrual syndrome, then day 1, then day 2 and 3, people say, oh my God, it's normally havoc. Then it goes reducing. So I'll always ask you, on your heaviest day, how many pads were you using for you to say they're abnormal now? So we say more than 5 or 4 in 24 hours is abnormal.
More than 4 pads?
Yes, more than 4 pads in 24 hours on your heaviest day. Maybe 5. But if you tell me you're using 8 pads on your heaviest day, 24 hours, or someone tells me I'm using a pack, then that's abnormal. So those abnormalities. Now there are those who start their period, and for them having pain is something they've had since menarche. So menarche is when the onset of menstruation. So when you start having your periods and maybe they're not painful, then all of a sudden you're getting pain. You're getting bleeding between your periods that was not there before.
And between your periods, you mean the cycle is not yet over. It's not time for the next period, but now you're having a bleeding incident.
After you finished your
Correct.
proper bleeding, yes. So those are some of the abnormalities we say you need to go and see a doctor.
Yes.
And before we to assume that, if someone has painful periods, means cool, I knew that's not, that's normal.
So what is pain? What's the threshold of pain? Like when you decide, okay, this pain is a bit too much.
Debilitating pain. Any pain that throws you off your
Routine.
normal routine of life. So if I come to your place and you're in pain and you're rolling on the floor, you have a cold pack, then you put a warm pack, as in nothing is working. There are people who are having what is called premenstrual dysmorphic disorder, whereby premenstrual symptoms are coupled with depression, mood swings, they vomit, they have diarrhea, then that can be abnormal. Then you have to go and see a doctor and let them give you a diagnosis as what is going on.
So, Doc, I know, and we're in the same profession, and as I was writing about this and posting it, and the feedback I was getting, we were getting a lot to blame on our end because somebody is on their periods. They realize there's a problem, even as young as a teenager. One of them said when she was a teenager, the doctor even recommended that she gets pregnant to ease the pain, and she was about 14. And I can imagine what this would do to both the child and the mother who's come to hospital.
It is absurd.
So I feel like I'm on this end where somebody says, okay, I knew there was a problem. I made an attempt at trying to address it. And when I reached the doctor's office, this is what transpired. So in your opinion, what should this is a show or this is a channel where tunajengana. So if somebody comes to the hospital, to the doctor's office, what is expected of the doctor and what is expected of the client or the patient? Yes.
So if you come to my clinic and tell me I have a problem, of course, hi, how are you? Create a rapport. The first thing we'll ask, of course, is your name, your age.
Yes.
Gynecologist standard. When was your last period?
Yes.
And thank God these days there are, you got
It's
apps
like,
on phones that you can now, So I tell you, do you have the app? So those who don't have it, I tell them, kupiga kiboko, because. But then let's not make an assumption everybody knows, because if I go to the rural areas, they don't have this, they don't know these things. So the first thing is evaluating your cycle, evaluating your bleeding, and then see where the abnormality is. You have to investigate to say that there's no problem. And there are those who have dysmenorrhea, which is painful periods, and really we will not find an issue. And can I say to be abnormal for them, and they can be managed with analgesics.
So
but
there
you
are people,
don't just assume.
There's for those who they will have the pain, and the pain will be excruciating from their point of view. But when you assess,
don't downplay it.
When you assess, there's no underlying issue. So these ones can be managed on painkillers.
On painkillers,
right.
yes,
Okay.
yeah. So unless it's extreme cases like endometriosis, for them now they have to be put on treatment. On treatment. Remember again, endometriosis doesn't have a cure. So some of them you evaluate and see what can be causing. Is it pelvic inflammatory disease? Is it does she have fibroids that are now causing and having heavy bleeding? So the uterus is contracting like it has cramps.
Yes.
It will be more. So secondary dysmenorrhea basically is pain that starts, you didn't have it before, then it starts. Primary is you've had dysmenorrhea before. So you need to evaluate both. I learned, don't downplay someone's symptoms.
Don't ignore.
And don't say, before I used to say, oh, it's normal. Cramps. I don't, until you realize someone is rolling on the floor.
And actually from the stories, it's sad that there are people who plan this. A friend of mine, actually, she's actually a personal friend. And I actually saw her suffer this, even in campus, that on those specific days, there's no school. And even goes on to work. So even the employer, for some reason, will have to sort of also manage with that. On that note, Doc, let's do part 2 of this discussion. I am having so much fun. I'm so excited that we got to have a specialist with us. On part 2, we'll talk about endometriosis.